The Dallas Cowboys lose an absolute heartbreaker in week one. We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool, and we are breaking down the Cowboys' 24-20 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles in week one. The Cowboys had a chance to win this game. They had the ball with under 2 minutes left, down by 4 at about midfield, but a couple drops by CeeDee Lamb ultimately sealed their fate. Landon, this one, nobody expected the Cowboys to win this one. But man, they had a great chance to steal this one late.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing we need to do is remind ourselves the level of difficulty that we're talking about. I mean, these are the Super Bowl champs. It's the banner hanging game. We're playing in Philadelphia. We've got a brand new head coach who's never been a head coach, wasn't a play caller last year, wasn't the play caller last year. And I think that a lot of us expected that there was a chance that disaster could have happened. We certainly painted a picture where something like this, maybe combined with the win, was within the realm of possibilities. To see and we'll talk it, we'll obviously break it all down, but I think just to take a step back for a second and talk about what the overall vibe is of the team versus before and after the game. As disappointing as it was to lose the game in the manner we did, CeeDee Lamb dropping the ball, which is something I don't feel like another way we're going to lose the game in another part of the season. I'm still so incredibly encouraged by a lot of the little things that I saw that I just didn't have any answers for, and to see them kind of perform and come out early and perform against a Philadelphia team like that. That all was extremely encouraging, and it starts especially with Brian Schottenheimer.
I understand. I have very mixed emotions coming out of that game, because you're right. We thought there was a chance that they could potentially get blown out in this game, and they didn't. They started off this game incredibly fast, and honestly, we need to give Brian Schottenheimer some credit. He had this team ready to play, at least on the offensive side of the ball. They started the game off with back-to-back touchdown drives. I think they scored points on their first 4 drives of the game. The offense, considering that they didn't do anything in the preseason, looked really good. At the same time, this was a game where Philadelphia had a lot of penalties. They didn't throw the ball particularly well. You had Jalen Carter kicked out before even the first play on offense, and yet you still weren't able to get the win. And now, again, you got to go, 10-6 probably the rest of the way to make the postseason. It's going to be an uphill climb with that schedule they have.
Sure, but I mean, last week we also traded Micah Parsons away, so I think
I know.
in the scale of where we are, I think it's. I think that there was some positivity we saw today, and look, I think if anything, I feel like, look, if you can do that and play that close with the Eagles, I think that puts you in the realm of kind of winning some of these games that maybe you didn't think you had any chance in before. So there certainly is opportunity to steal some of these games. And obviously this is just week one, so yeah, we'll see how this develops. But it was a tough way to lose that game for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about the good thing here. Dak Prescott, the numbers aren't going to show it. 21 of 34 for 188 yards, averaging 5.5 yards per attempt. No touchdowns, no interceptions. But he played lights out in this game. There were a couple moments later in the fourth quarter where maybe he was forcing a couple passes, but I thought for the most part, Dak played at a really high level, and this certainly didn't look like a quarterback who missed a good chunk of last season.
No, I mean, he certainly looked like a quarterback that was going to win that game. And honestly, CeeDee Lamb catches one of those 3 passes at the end. I think they had a really good chance to win. So, yeah, I mean, the thing that was really impressive was just watching how aggressive he was playing, right? His average depth of target was at right around 10 yards. And just really, just watching him attack the seam, aggressively attack those Eagles corners. They really showed, and that's what I loved about just the tone, and they kind of came out. They weren't afraid. They went straight at the Eagles defense, and kind of had them on their heels for a good portion of the first half and into the second half. So I do think that, that was all extremely positive to see. Hey, 2023 Dak's still here, right? Like, he still exists. You give him some protection, some opportunities, and some folks to actually get open and make play. He can deliver the ball. Now, CeeDee Lamb and some of these other folks got to make sure that they finish the play, and then we'll see how that works.
Let's talk about that. CeeDee Lamb, 13 targets, 7 catches for 110 yards. He drew, I think, 2 penalties, 1 pass interference in the end zone, which set up a Javonte Williams touchdown run. He had his moments. Like, CeeDee had some big plays in this game, and he had some crucial conversions. But it's just the drops. He had a drop on a dig route. He had a deep pass on the second to last drive of the game that went through his hands. And then the play of the game, I'm not going to criticize him in that one, because he kind of had his arm pulled back a little bit. He could have made that catch. It would have been a wild catch. But the overall point is, for as great as CeeDee Lamb is, he let them down in this one.
For sure. And you don't expect that that's going to happen again. And again, it's early September. It's September football. It's the earliest September football. But obviously, extremely disappointing considering how well he played throughout the rest of the game and how well the offense was seemingly played. I think that was the thing that was kind of crazy to me, is that, this is a team that we've kind of come to just expect pre-snap penalties and like a lot of, mental mistakes. And especially in September in week 1, I would have expected a lot more of that. And there wasn't a ton of that. So outside of CeeDee's kind of concentration drops, I do feel like the team was very crisp, which is why it was even more shocking that a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who's probably the best player on your team, was put into position multiple times to extend the opportunity to win the game. And he couldn't come up with one of them. And you're right. That last one, I don't blame him for. But the one that went through his hands on the slant, on the deep dig route that it bounced off his head, like that was terrible.
We should mention that it feels like that the rain delay or the lightning delay really changed this game. I don't believe there was any points scored after the lightning delay. And we had just these offenses moving up and down the field. We had 3 total points scored in the second half of this game. And I don't know whether it was because guys were stiff or they, or defenses had a little bit of time to adjust and catch up. It almost feels like this was 2 completely separate games.
They flipped. It's like the game flipped after the lightning, right? We would be remiss, and I need to make sure that we mention it before we get out of the offensive segment, of Javonte Williams and what a game he had today. Because I do think that we'll talk about the offensive line, because I do think that's a whole separate section. But Javonte Williams specifically himself looked really impressive considering what we're all expecting of him, right? I do think that they still probably need to figure out one more of these guys that can be a better alternative to kind of mix it up. Miles Sanders was obviously a big swing and a big hit and a big miss, right? Like at one point. But I think that Javonte Williams has kind of shown us, hey, that he can be that bruiser who's efficient with running the football, had a high success rate tonight. Everything I think looked good on that front.
All right, let's talk about the defense, which was awful in the first half and then somewhat decent in the second half, maybe even a little bit better than that. We'll talk about what happened next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football officially back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks for years now, and it's such a fun way to stay locked into the NFL season, even if your team isn't doing very well. There's so many different options and different players that you can choose from. It's quick, easy, and honestly, it's my new favorite way to follow football. Download the Prize Picks app today and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is promo code LOCKEDON for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every single detail. Just like an athlete focuses on every detail, Mazda does the same, from metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather. You can feel it the moment that you get behind the wheel, the smooth handling, the awesome controls, and the standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. It's these small details that make big plays. Just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Later, let's talk about the Cowboys defense, because man, what a mixed bag in this game. They started out in the first half, and it was awful. The Philadelphia was going up and down the field. I think in the first quarter, they forced 1 third down, and that was the third down that Philadelphia ultimately scored a touchdown on. Yeah, their drives: 10 plays, 70 yards, touchdown; 12 plays, 65 yards, touchdown; 8 plays, 81 yards, touchdown. That was the entire first half. And then in the second half, we had a field goal, and then the rain delay, and then punt, end of game. They got better as the game went on, but I still don't feel great about their defense.
Well, I think that part of what was happening, especially in the first half, is that they were getting punished a very specific way, right? Like, it felt like they could not keep Jalen Hurts from getting out of the pocket and picking up chunks with his legs. Saquon Barkley didn't have an especially great night of football tonight. And the Cowboys actually did a pretty decent job of kind of shutting down the traditional run game. I think Barkley ended up with less than 3.5 yards a carry and somewhere around 33% success rate, which, is pretty decent for Saquon Barkley, I would say. The problem is that you can't stop Saquon Barkley and stop AJ Brown and stop Smith and stop Goddard and also stop Jalen Hurts without a level of talent that I think the Cowboys just aren't at right now. So I think when they made some adjustments, when they were a little bit better about keeping their rush lanes, especially on the outside, and they started blitzing, it felt like a little bit more, or at least mixing up the blitzes a little bit more, attacking Jalen Hurts. That's when they started to have a little bit more success, it felt like, in the second half. So
yeah, and I got the numbers here. The running backs, you combine Saquon Barkley, Will Shipley, and A.J. Dillon, they averaged 4 yards a carry. If I would have told you going into the game the Cowboys were going to hold those the running backs to 4 yards per rush, I think you sign up for that all day long.
Against the Eagles offensive line. Yes. Like, this was, that's the thing that I'm trying to quantify to folks. Like, this is the ultimate test. Like, this is the team that just won the Super Bowl. They play a style of football that is literally the biggest weakness that we have. And yeah, it doesn't look great, but it also wasn't the worst. So if this is the point that we're building from, and we're going to try to improve from this, like, I feel like this was a good starting point. Again, it means a lot less because we lost the game, but like, if the Cowboys can kind of figure out a way to do what they did in the first half, and then also maintain their lanes, keep Jalen Hurts from killing you every third down with 10-yard runs, then I think that they may have something on defense. But it certainly didn't look great early on when basically Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert were marching the Eagles up and down the field at will.
Yeah, we should give credit to the cornerbacks, because Kyrie Elam gave up one big play to Jahan Dotson. But for the most part, Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland were awesome. I'm looking at some Pro Football Focus early grades here. You want to guess how many yards Diggs and Bland allowed together in coverage?
I mean, it can't be a ton, because Smith was 15 yards maybe?
11.
Yeah. Look, and even Elam's situation, like, it was so funny. They had the dots for the Elam the reception that Elam gave up, and even on the dots, it looks like Elam intercepts the ball because he was so tight in coverage. He just didn't make a play on the ball. So it's not like he's what we saw at times with guys like Booth, where he was just 10 yards away from the guy. He just needs to make the play. And that's the other thing I wanted to point out about the defense to me, is that, like, obviously the results are pretty ugly at certain points, But I think if you're watching the game, it looks way better than it did at any point last year. They're not being blown off the ball consistently every single snap. And I think you notice the difference with a guy like Kenny Clark in the middle, because he's getting penetration. Maybe he's not always making the play, but it still looks noticeably different. It feels like things need to be tightened as opposed to, oh my gosh, they have to burn this down and start over. Like there's some hope there, at least in the middle.
I thought Osa Odigizua played really well in this game. He had some unbelievable plays in the run and in the passing game. I thought Kenny Clark was a little bit up and down, but he's somebody that played 40 defensive snaps. He just got here a week ago, like literally a week ago. Yeah. It still feels like they're a guy or two short on the defensive line.
Yes.
And I think one of the big things you're seeing is, I think Jack Sanborn is fine. It's the other linebacker spot where you're really missing DeMarvion Overshown, and you're hopeful that whether it's middle of this year or whenever Overshown comes back, he's the kind of guy that can give you juice to the defense. But it seems like a more fundamentally sound defense. It's just not as talented as we're used to seeing.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that with the edges, it's like you see them in flashes, right? Like Nealand had a really great game. It felt right. Like there were times when you saw Ezeraku out there, and he's dipping around the corner, he's getting the edge, and then there's times that he's being absolutely manhandled by Jordan Mailata, and it's like, so I just think as those guys start to get older, like that's the upside for your defensive line, at least for this season. As guys like Nealand and Williams continue to age and play out a little bit, they'll start to get better and better and better. So I think you saw a little bit of it tonight. So and then having at least some kind of solid presence in the middle of that defensive line, I think it's just going to help the guys on the outside. It's going to help the linebackers behind them, especially when Overshown comes back.
I would assume that when they play some better offenses, now some worse offenses. I don't think Philadelphia's offense is like all that confusing. I think they just try to beat you with talent, and for the most part, they can, right? But like when you play some of these lesser offenses like the Giants next week, I would think they would have some more success. I would think they'd be able to generate some more pressure. You're going up against, this was the best offensive tackle duo in the league, and while you didn't get a ton of pressure, you did see some. Like you saw Dante Fowler beat Jordan Mailata. You saw Sam Williams create some pressure. You saw Osa Odigizua do some stuff. You saw the corners get into the action. Like they weren't that far away from stealing this game.
And again, that's what I'm trying to get at too, is that like, this isn't just a normal year Eagles game where, they played tight with the Eagles. These guys won the Super Bowl like just a few months ago. They won 15 games in a row. So like, this was a very difficult test. And considering that, I think what you saw from that group is a good start, and it's a launching point to hopefully get better and maybe become more fearsome. I mean, I think you're right. Next week we'll see if they can play a little bit better against a lesser pair of tackles.
It's just, again, there's a lot of positives to take out of this game, but man, there's only so many winnable games that you're going to have. And on the road, you had a chance to steal this game, and ultimately you just couldn't do it. And you just wonder, like, how does a win like that, if the Cowboys were able to get it, how does that change the trajectory of the season? I don't know. I mean, obviously none of us are going to know. It just felt like one that you could have got.
Yeah, I think the key here is to take away some confidence in that, like, hey, you played with the world champs at their place, and you took them to the limit. I think that's worth being a launching point in itself to kind of roll downhill a little bit on some of these teams.
All right, let's talk about the Cowboys offensive line. For the most part, held up well in this game. Later in the fourth quarter, it got a little iffy, but let's talk about that young offensive line next. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. It's time to take a look back at this week's MVP, Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered the most. And let's break it down. I thought the Cowboys' interior offensive line, Tyler Smith, Tyler Booker, and Cooper Beebe, they were lights out on Thursday night. I just thought they did a great job giving Dak Prescott time. They were moving the Eagles defenders off the ball. You've got to be really encouraged with how that unit is playing and what they might look like by the time we get to the middle point of the season. And just like those offensive line, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save on every Saturday order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL previews. You can find them on the Locked On NFL playlist on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Every division winner, every breakout star, every Super Bowl contender, just absolutely fantastic content. Go check it out. All right, Lane, let's talk about that young offensive line because I thought Tyler Booker for his first game was absolutely outstanding. I saw a stat from Next Gen Stats, 1 pressure allowed, I believe, no quarterback hits. Tyler Guyton was probably the worst of the 4 of the 5.
Really? That's surprising too, because I felt like he played a good game.
And that was the point. I think the floor seems so much higher when Tyler Guyton was not awful, and he was still you still had a good offensive line performance.
Let's start with Tyler Guyton because, let's remember what was it that I said, when we were talking about if Tyler Guyton would even play, right? Yeah. It was no matter if Tyler Guyton plays or not, whoever it is that's playing left tackle is going to get a ton of help on that side. Tyler Guyton not only played the entire game, he didn't get a ton of help on that side, at least from what I saw. They definitely were helping their tackles at times, but Tyler Guyton was able to hold his own for the most part against Nolan Smith, against some of those guys on the outside. So, absolutely. And then in the run game was a dominant player. Certainly on that first touchdown was moving bodies on the inside. So absolutely home run first game. Now he had a home run first game his rookie year too. So we got to see him kind of continue that. But huge game for him. I think that the guys inside obviously are, the biggest stars maybe of the game. Right. Like I think the trio inside really showed you. I laughed when you mentioned the pressure that Booker gave up, because do you remember where that pressure was?
Was it on a stunt?
It was it was missing that pass stunt that caused the hurry that I think was what caused an incompletion down on the goal line on third down. It was a big hurry to give up. But game 1 against the Super Bowl champs, again, not against Jalen Carter, totally get that, but they also still have Jordan Davis and other folks in there. It's not like they aren't deep at the defensive line. So I do think that it was a very solid effort for a rookie coming in, and BB and obviously Tyler Smith at this point are old pros, right? And just removing bodies. I just loved seeing the gap scheme stuff. And we also, and how effective they were at moving bodies in the gap scheme. And I just love that we also got to see finally, the kind of unveiling of the kind of motions and formational stuff that we saw in training.
I got a stat.
Let's hear it. Yes.
Kavonte Turpin was in motion on 58% of his offensive snaps, which is the most of his career.
Yeah, and again, like that doesn't surprise me. And you saw a lot of kind of the orbital stuff where he motions and then rotates back around for the quarterback, back outside. It's just we saw a lot of it, and it's again just another tool in the bag to kind of help them, identify things, help them get advantage, maybe change the angles in the run game, and that's all it took, right? And then again, Javonte Williams did a great job of kind of reading that up. I didn't mention Terrence Steele. Terrence Steele, like for a guy that we've kind of just come to expect a certain level of play. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. We just never really sure what Terrence Steele we got. I thought Terrence Steele played an excellent game tonight, especially in the run game. Getting back to a kind of efficient run game, especially a power run game, really suits his game a lot. And I think that you talked about it, like some of the later in the game stuff that was problematic. It's because the Eagles knew that the Cowboys had to throw the ball a lot more, and it was a lot easier for, I think, them to tee off in the pass rush.
Yeah, I've got to imagine there's going to be still more tweaks with his offense. I would like to see the target distribution be a little better. I think George Pickens had like 4 targets in this game. CeeDee had 13. Jake Ferguson was basically used as like a lot of touches at the line of scrimmage. He did get a couple in the middle of the field. And we know the results of those ones, but there's a lot to like about this offense. I'm actually shocked that they only scored 20 points considering how much they were moving the ball up and down the field. But again, this game completely changed for both teams once that weather delay happened. I don't think we can read too much about the offenses or really the defense after this one game because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think after that point, it was, they started playing football again at 11:30 at night on the East Coast, right? So,
Oh, tell me about
yeah,
it.
yeah, I don't need to, I know, and what I also don't need to tell you is that players were scrounging for Uncrustables just to kind of have the energy to kind of continue playing. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think everything after that is kind of it's tough to gauge. So there are still a lot of worries, I would say, with what's going to happen with the defense. How is it going to traject going forward? Maybe not next week against the Giants, but in the following weeks where you actually play some legit offenses, you're going to have some concerns.
Last thing before we go, we said the Cowboys needed to play a clean game in order to beat the Eagles. You're -1 in the turnover department. The Miles Sanders fumble was huge. You actually had a couple of miscues on special teams, whether it was Turpin dropping a kickoff and kind of pinning the Cowboys down inside his own range. You had Brandon Aubrey kicking the ball out of the back of the end zone, which gave Philadelphia good field position. It's just those little moments that add up to be the difference in a 4-point game.
September football, man.
It
You
is.
gotta. I mean, it's about as clean a game as you're going to see teams play in September, I think. But you're right. It's the difference in the game, right? It was the difference between the Eagles and the Cowboys game is that the Cowboys fumbled the ball inside the Eagles' red zone, right, and had an opportunity to kind of get ahead and put the Eagles in a tough spot. Instead, the game flipped. The lightning delay obviously flipped it even more, but I do think that if the Cowboys had scored there and then the lightning delay would have happened, there's
Might be different.
little doubt in my mind the Cowboys win that game.
So the Dallas Cowboys are now 0-1 to start the season. They'll play the New York Giants at home in what I don't want to say a must-win game in week 2 later, but it kind of feels like a must-win. No, it's gonna feel like forever till we see the Cowboys play again. We've got 10 days. We got a lot of football to watch. We'll continue to break it all down here on the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy all of the football this week. We'll see you right back here on Monday.